Hello there. Welcome to the Saroy channel, wherever you are in the world, and so much love to each and every one of you. How are you doing? I do hope you're doing remarkably well. I'm doing great, thank you very much, and I'm delighted you've joined me for part 3 of our story tonight. And it's a very exciting story because we have got Prt3of4, who is his father's son. His father is an estate agent, and he's trying to present a property on open day for his father because his father has been called away to attend to his sister, who obviously had an accident where she wasn't taking her blood sugar medication properly and collapsed. So he's gone to the hospital to see if she's all right. And now Prt3of4, who has no experience in sales whatsoever, is presenting an open house to the public that's out in the middle of the countryside. It's a place called Dogwood Manor, and he's had a very interesting client so far. But now a very interesting woman has arrived in the driveway with a clapped out car, and he's having to deal with her and 2 rather difficult children. So let's continue with our story. The oversized woman seemed a little out of breath when she entered the hallway. There were beads of perspiration that had broken out on her forehead, that she hurriedly dabbed away with the back of her tissue. Oh dear, she muttered. It's so hot, so dreadfully hot today. She looked at me through narrowing eyes that seemed so small and inconspicuous on her wide face, like 2 tiny buttons sewn onto a vast expanse of beige fabric. Are you the estate agent? She asked suspiciously, looking around almost as if she half expected to see someone older than myself making their appearance known and taking over from me. But she was to be sadly disappointed about that. That's right, I said. I'm presenting the house today. The name is Prt3of4. I'm delighted to meet you, ma'am. I take it you're interested in seeing around Dogwood Manor. Would you like a brochure that will give you all the details about the property? Of course I want a brochure, said the woman, greedily snatching it away from my hand and giving me a slightly disapproving, affronted look. She studied the house on the spread-out page. Ah, it's big, isn't it? Just the way I like it. The woman gave me a cursory glance. You don't look old enough to be an estate agent, if you don't mind my saying so, she said rather brusquely. How old are you? I took offence to the question. I may be a teenager, but this did not mean I was incompetent to do this job. I'm not an estate agent, ma'am, I admitted. I told you I'm standing in for my father. I'm 18. My dad is showing me the ropes in the business, so I'm learning about it at the moment. Well, he shouldn't leave you on your own like this, should he? What kind of a father is he? You look younger than your 18 years, said the woman. It's a pity that I cannot be shown around by a seasoned professional, but I guess you'll just have to do. But of course, I said, giving the woman a watery smile. I would be delighted, ma'am, to show you around this house. Sorry I didn't get your name. The name is Barbara Tooley, if you must know, but everybody I know calls me Dolly. Are you looking for yourself? I asked. The woman let out a cocky laugh. Heavens, no, son. Do I look as if I can afford a place like this? She asked me, rolling her eyes in the back of her head. You're not very sharp, young man, if you don't mind my saying so. You only have to look at my clapped-out motor car parked in the driveway to know I ain't got money stashed away in the bank. If I did, I wouldn't be driving such a beat-up old thing like that. I'll be lucky if I can get that clapper to start again when I finally leave this place. Sadly, it's on its last legs, I'm afraid. If you must know, I'm looking for my sister. She's filthy rich, landed herself a great big catch on Wall Street and got a ring on her finger so fast before that husband of hers woke up to smell the coffee. That sister of mine knows what side her bread's buttered, believe me. She's always fancied the finer things in life. Did so even when she was a kid. Had aspirations for making it big, and she did so. And I say good on her. I'm looking at this place on my sister's behalf. I was in the area, and I thought, why not? I told her I'd give her a report on Dogwood Manor. She couldn't come here herself today, regrettably. She had a prior engagement. My sister simply adores historic homes. This place looks a lot like, what is it called now? The woman paused for a brief moment. It was on a British television programme that was aired in America. Everybody loved it. My sister particularly, because of course she loves history. She also loved the programme because it had her favourite actress starring in it. What was her name again? Oh yes, Maggie Smith. What was that place called now? I've gone completely blank. Oh, you're talking about Downton Abbey, ma'am, I said. Ah, yes, that is my sister for you. She fancies herself in a grand house like the Crawleys lived in back in the day. So this place, Dogwood Manor, ticks all the boxes for her. She can play being lady of the manor in a house like this, can't she? And she would simply adore to do that. My sister's a posh bird, quite a poser, really. Even paid for the two of us to have elocution lessons, would you believe, to improve our vocabulary, as she believes that how you speak is incredibly important. But personally I haven't found speaking posh has got me terribly far. But for my sister, doors have opened up for her wherever she goes. I suppose it's never really harmed my sister, being so incredibly attractive, and being a size 0 to boot, dressing like the late Jackie Kennedy used to. That's my sister for you. One look at her and you will think she owns an ocean liner and takes her holidays in Monaco. Regretfully, the same cannot be said for myself. But I'm not going to make any apologies in that regard. I've always had a shoddy metabolism, I'm afraid. I only have to look at a donut and I put on 3 dress sizes almost immediately. I'm sure that's not true, ma'am, I said politely. It is true, I'm afraid, young man. You don't have to lie to be nice, you know. The mirror never lies, and I haven't dared look in one for many years. Otherwise I would get a terrible fright, wondering who the hippo was that was staring back at me in the mirror. Hearing Dolly speak made me happy indeed. This was very good news. Things were looking up. My heart began to flutter with excitement. Dolly may look like she lived in a clapped-out car with her 2 kids, but by the sounds of things her sister was absolutely minted, and rather fancied herself as lady of the manor. There may be a sail in the wings after all, so I needed to do my level best to treat Dolly like a film star, even if she was far from looking like one, so that she could give her sister a good report on Dogwood Manor. I took Dolly around the grand mansion, with my chest proudly puffed up like a penguin, for I felt certain an imminent sale was brewing. Now you kids, said Dolly, pointing a warning sausage-sized finger at her 2 children, who stared back at her with wide brown eyes. I need you to both behave. You need to both stay close to me. Do you understand what I'm saying? I don't want you going wandering off on your own. Dolly fixed her gaze particularly on the little girl, as if her youngest daughter was a problematic child that needed careful watching over. Tansy, Mummy needs you to behave yourself, and if you're a good girl, I'll buy you an ice cream later. I have to concentrate, so no funny business while I'm looking around this lovely house for your aunt. Do you understand? Tom, make absolutely sure you watch your sister's every move. Don't let her wander off too far away from where I am. I want no running off or playing hide-and-seek in the closets. Do you understand? And don't touch anything too valuable. We promise to be good, Mummy, said the little boy, speaking for the both of them. Dolly's 2 children seemed to obediently follow close behind their mother, as they had promised they would do so. They appeared to spend much of their time whispering and giggling together. Occasionally they'd look out of the windows of Dogwood Manor to enjoy the views, all the while sucking their sticky lollipops and getting goo and dirty handprints all over the place. I didn't care, not if a sale was on the horizon. I knew after they were gone, I'd have to find a warm cloth somewhere in the kitchen and wipe up the sticky mess after them, which seemed like a small price to pay if Dolly's sister considered buying Dogwood Manor. Things were looking up, especially when Dolly oohed and ahed with appreciation with everything she viewed. It would seem that every approving grunt she made my heart beat a little faster, as I eagerly anticipated a great big fat juicy sale on the cards. Dolly was out of breath when she climbed the staircase. She huffed and puffed all the way up. "This place is absolutely magnificent. I think Lisa would love this home. I can actually see her living here. One thing is she'll keep her figure in check, running up and down these flights of stairs. She won't need a gym membership at all, will she?" "You're right," I said. "You would get fit running up and down the staircase every day. I'm most sure about that." "I wouldn't like it myself," said Dolly, "but this house ticks all the boxes for my sister. No one can deny that." At Dolly's comments, I inwardly grinned. If I procured a sale, I wondered whether my father would give me some of the commission. It would only be fair, wouldn't it, if I was the one that shifted the house for him? I was now resolutely determined to sell this place before my father arrived back on the scene from the hospital. I was now hoping he would take his time getting back to Dogwood Manor, so that I might procure that much-needed sale before he even got back. "And this is the master bedroom," I said to Dolly proudly. I led her into the stunning room with its grand, ornately carved four-poster bed, accentuated by the deep rich colour of the emerald green bed covers. The room boasted a grand fireplace and beautiful large windows overlooking the front yard. "Lovely jubbly," said Dolly, running her hands approvingly over the wooden bed. I'd never heard an American woman use such expressions before, so it really was quite strange to hear. Maybe she watched a ton of British sitcoms and was adopting their phraseology into her American drawl. It was quite refreshing in a manner of speaking. All of a sudden the little boy ran up to his mother and began pulling at her sweater earnestly, his lollipop sticking abrasively to her big-as-beautiful sweatshirt. "Tom, what is your problem, love? You're supposed to be playing close by me with your sister and keeping a firm eye on little Tansy. You know how mischievous your sister can be. I told you I need to look around this property for Aunt Lisa. I can't have you interfering." Dolly removed the sticky lollipop from her sweatshirt with an expression of abject disgust on her face. "Look what you've done to my sweater. It's very sticky now," she said, handing the lollipop back to her son. "Where is Tansy?" she asked, her eyes sweeping across the room for her little girl, who did not appear to be there. Tom's eyes grew round. For a moment he looked like a deer caught in headlights. He appeared to be quite affrighted. "Tansy's gone, Mummy! She's gone!" he wailed, tears spilling down his cheeks unapologetically. Dolly frowned at her son. "What are you talking about, Tom? What do you mean Tansy's gone?" "Tansy went into the woods to play with the bear lady. I saw her, Mummy." "What do you mean she went into the woods, Tom? You know you're supposed to look after your sister. I thought I told you to stick by me at all times and not to wander off. I haven't got eyes in the back of my head, you know," said Dolly scoldingly. "I can't be looking at a house and watching you at the very same time, can I?" "But she wouldn't listen, Mummy. I told her not to go. We saw the bear lady in the upstairs window. Tansy ran downstairs and out of the house to see her. I told her to stop, but she wouldn't listen. She ignored me, Mummy. I think she went to play with the bear lady, but what if the bear lady is a very horrible lady? What if the bear lady hurts her? The bear lady is very, very big, Mummy." "What on earth are you saying, Tom? I do wish you would speak more clearly. You say that Tansy saw a bear in the woods and went running after it. Is that what you're saying?" said Dolly in abject horror. She broke out into beads of perspiration all over her blubbery face. She began to wobble precariously, like a great big Portuguese man of war. She started to pant furiously like a dog who's been running around and around for many miles and has exhausted himself to such an extreme that all he wants to do is to flop onto the ground with his tongue hanging out as he tries to adjust to his breathing. I sneakily suspected that poor Dolly was having some kind of a panic attack, and I had no idea in the circumstances how to offer her help or support in regards to the matter. "What on earth is wrong with you, Tom? Why won't you listen? You were supposed to look after Tansy." "But you didn't," said Dolly breathlessly. "You know what my daughter is like. What if the bear attacks her? Have you thought about that, Tom? How many times have I told you kids that bears in the wild are not like the soft, fluffy, cute bears you buy at the store? They are wild animals. They are dangerous. You can't just go and play with them. What on earth is wrong with you? You should have known better, Tom. You're the oldest. I expect better from you, Tom. Really I do." Dolly let out an exasperated sigh. She shook her head furiously. "I knew I should never have brought you two kids along for the ride. Nothing but trouble. I told you to stay by my side, but would you listen? No, you wouldn't. I even bought those lollipops to keep you both occupied. But no, you couldn't be good, could you? You've let your sister go wandering off into the woods, running after a female bear. You know that is asking for trouble, son. Honestly, I despair with the two of you. Even when I teach the both of you common sense, you willfully abandon it." Dolly was now wheezing, struggling desperately to breathe in her angst. She pointed a large sausage-sized finger at me, thrusting her ample derriere onto the bed, so that the whole bed rocked under her sizable girth as she bounced on the mattress. She clutched her purse tightly to her chest, as if holding it gave her some much-needed energy. She tried to focus on her breathing, so she could speak more clearly without running out of breath. She ferreted around in her purse and finally found the inhaler she was looking for, which she used to help her unblock her airways. I doubt the woman suffered from asthma, but it seemed to help her breathe more easily. "You!" she said, pointing at me presumptuously, as if I was somehow responsible for her daughter Tansy having wandered off. "You need to go after Tansy for me, son. She's in the woods. She's going after a bear. That thing could potentially kill her. I can't do it myself. I simply haven't got the energy. I'm completely out of breath. I know I should get fit and lose weight, but I've got a dilapidated metabolism. The doctor's tried everything for me, but I'm as clapped out and as tired as the car that is parked in my driveway is, I'm afraid." Dolly was still gasping for breath. Indeed, it would seem she was unable to move a muscle, as like a great big walrus squatting lackadaisically on the beach, she parked herself on the bed, with an expectation directed towards me, written over her face, as if she was completely dependent on me to go after her daughter Tansy and bring her back safely into the fold, like a sheep that has gone astray. In effect, I needed to be the shepherd, looking for the lost sheep. "Don't worry about a thing, Dolly, and please don't panic. I need you to calm down. Your breathing is very worrying. I'll get your daughter Tansy back for you, I can promise you of that. I'm sure she hasn't gone terribly far." Dolly groaned. "You don't know what my Tansy's like, young man. You have absolutely no idea. She's always wandering off and doing her own thing. Tom has to watch her all the time like a hawk. She gets up to so much mischief. Even when we go to the supermarket, she wanders off like this. Last time I went to the supermarket, they found her in the seafood section, trying to befriend a live lobster. She pulled the thing out of the tank, removed the string from its pincers, and she set the thing free on the supermarket floor where it was flapping around. I'd never been so embarrassed in all my life. But that's my Tansy for you. She's a law unto herself. So I bought the supermarket lobster home, and it's now living in a tank we set up for him. She's called the thing Ernie, I believe it is. How could I not buy the thing after all that?" "Where exactly did she go, Tom?" I asked the young boy, who ran to the window in the bedroom and pointed to a path through the trees. "She went in there after the bear lady." "I need you to stay on this bed and focus on your breathing, Dolly," I told the woman. "I've got this sorted. Some of those black bears are scared of human beings. I saw some bear spray in the kitchen. I'll take it along with me, but I'm sure I shall scare it away. Have no fear. Everything's going to be just fine." "Go at once," said Dolly. "We can't just spend our time pontificating and talking about this. We need to go out there and get my tansy. Please, I'm begging you, go now. Think about it, it's spring. The bears have come out of hibernation, have they not? Imagine if this bear has got cubs." Dolly began to whimper at the thought of her daughter having a confrontation with a black bear with cubs.
"Can I go with him, Mummy, to look for Tansy?"
asked little Tom.
"I promise I'll be good. I'll behave myself."
"No, you can't," said Dolly. "You stay here with me, Tom. I've had enough trouble for one day, and I don't want any more funny business. You don't realize how serious this is, Tom. Your sister could be in big, big trouble if she meets a mother bear. I can't bear to think about it. What was she thinking running after it like that?"
"I told you, Mummy, it wasn't a black bear with cubs. It was a bear, lady."
"Oh, stop talking nonsense, Tom. Honestly, you don't know if the bear has got cubs or not. She would probably keep the cubs very discreetly hidden. Now, goodness gracious me, let this man go after Tansy." I wasted no time in bolting towards the wood grove, conveniently forgetting that I was wearing a smart suit and shiny polished shoes. I probably looked ridiculous traipsing in the wood, looking for a little girl, but I had very little concern for myself. I took the path through the trees that Tom had pointed out to me. I brushed past some thorny briars that tore into my suit, ripping up the fabric on the shoulder area. I had some bear spray in my jacket, and I was disquieted about the thought of a little girl running after a bear. Hopefully the black bear would have bolted away by now. They could be timid at times, but what if it was a mother with cubs? It was spring, and the mother could have come out of hibernation. I did know there were bear sightings in these parts all the time. I didn't want to think about that. I needed to find little Tansy as quickly as possible, and by the sounds of things, she was always getting into horrible scrapes. I could empathise with Dolly, as growing up I had been a difficult child myself, that had tested my parents' patience to no end. It was a beautiful day. The cheerful spring sun graciously spilled through the branches of the trees in a glittering glaze that seemed to sparkle like glitter over the curtains of pretty green foliage and abundant shrubbery growing beneath the shaded canopy of the trees. The earthen floor was richly dark and fertile, and fallen leaves from the previous fall still covered the ground in a rich earthen mulch. The woodgrove was filled with the pleasing chirping sound of the birds, and the woody undertones and sweet flowery fragrances that impregnated the air were pleasing to behold. Bluebells resplendently covered the ground in flowery carpets. I wondered if I should call out Tansy's name, but before I could make that decision, all of a sudden I heard some chuckling and a little girl's voice saying, "Go, go, go!" What the hell, I thought, heartily relieved to hear that little Tansy sounded enthused and very upbeat. She didn't appear to be a frightened girl at all. On the contrary, I got the impression she appeared to be having a whale of a time, which brought me immediate relief. The girl was clearly not in trouble. I heard a strange thumbling sound through the trees, followed by a chatter, and that was followed by further giggles from Tansy. My curiosity was piqued. What was the little girl doing, I wondered? I decided to proceed cautiously on my feet. I knew growing up my sister Kate would spend countless hours talking to her dolls. I wondered if Tansy was caught up in a similar imaginary world. I wouldn't be remotely surprised. I moved towards the sound of little Tansy, and what I saw took my breath away. I saw Tansy's lollipop lying on the ground, covered in soil. The girl had abandoned it for something way better, and significantly more entertaining. That was when I saw this tall, towering silhouette that looked rather shadowy in the gossamer light of the woods. I stood very still and tried to focus on what I was seeing. I tried to persuade myself that this was not a trick of the light, but I realized what I was seeing was very definitely real. I was so taken aback that for a moment I became dizzy and disorientated, as if the shock of what I was beholding had knocked the wind out of my sails. I suddenly became rather faint and light-headed. I managed to compose myself. I steadied myself by reaching out for the tree trunk and holding myself erect. I allowed the fight and flight response to pass right through me, while I remained as still as a footprint stuck in cement. I realized that Tansy was sitting on top of the shoulders of what I could only describe as the largest female Bigfoot I've ever seen, not that I've ever seen a Bigfoot before, who was running up and down the clearing in the woods with a little girl perched on her shoulders. The female Bigfoot was giving the delighted girl rides. I had no idea how to react to this strange kind of scenario, for I had never ever seen anything like this happening before, and little Tansy appeared to be having the time of her life. She was slapping the Bigfoot's ponderous shoulders with her hands, as if they were the reins of a horse that she was directing, and she was shouting,
Giddy up! Giddy up, horsey! Giddy up! Go, go, go!
The Bigfoot seemed to be enjoying herself as much as the child was. I could even swear that the creature was chuckling. The Bigfoot was easily 8 foot tall, with shoulders that were so large and long dark flowing hair. But the face of this creature was remarkably human, so much so it took my breath away. Until this point in my life, I had never ever given the cryptid creatures a passing thought. But now I knew they were real. I was absolutely certain the Bigfoot and little Tansy were so caught up in the moment that they were not aware that I was there. But then I made a catastrophic mistake by stepping on a twig. It snapped so loudly that the Bigfoot immediately stopped in her tracks. She turned around to look at the place where I was hiding. She had heard me crunch a twig and knew where to locate me. I was amazed at her pinpoint accuracy. I remember once that a cricket got into my bedroom at home, and although it was so close and so loud, I could never locate it. The Bigfoot, with little Tansy perched on her back, came thundering towards me. She eagerly pushed back a curtain of shrubbery and saw me cowering behind the tree, looking straight at her through affrighted eyes. I don't mind admitting that I was terrified. I had no idea how she'd react to me. Children were one thing, adults quite another. It's not every day that you are standing inches away from a powerful creature, giving you a penetrating gaze. I was so close to her, I could actually feel her breath on my face, and it actually smelt oddly of onions, which was rather bizarre in itself. At this point my heart was booming in my chest at 1,000 miles an hour, and all I wanted to do was to shoot out of the woodgrove as fast as I could. The Bigfoot's eyes were remarkably kind, and when her eyes met mine, I knew at once she meant me no harm, that she was a benevolent creature. It was like she knew exactly why I had come here. She put the little girl onto the ground, pushing her gently towards me, saying something to Tansy in a strange language, which the girl appeared to understand. Kitakwi, motolasina sa, hikasi la po. Little Tansy looked angry. She stamped her little feet indignantly and said,
I want to stay with you and play horsey. I don't want to go with him. I don't know him. I don't want to go with him.
The Bigfoot spoke to her again, in a stern tone of voice, and said, Kutolo, kasi, motalola. She glanced at me with apologetic eyes, as if to apologize profusely for the child's belligerence. You need to come with me, I said to Tansy, suddenly finding my voice, and taking the girl's hands in mine. I think the Bigfoot saw this as her quintessential opportunity to quickly escape. As I secretly suspect, she knew very well that Tansy was quite the demanding child. She nodded at little Tansy and said something encouraging to the girl. I'm not sure what it was, but I suspect it was goodbye. Kila takila, motolo shikasa. And then she just glided away. Little Tansy had another tantrum. She began to cry.
I want to stay with her. I want to play horsey.
I had no idea how to treat little children, but I said to her in a no-nonsense tone of voice, which made Tansy promptly pay attention to me. Stop this now, Tansy. You're coming with me. She stopped crying at once. wiping the tears away from her eyes. She looked at me sorrowfully.
I only wanted to play with the bear lady. I just wanted to play with her.
Tansy, you need to come with me. You can't play with the bear lady. The bear lady's got other things to do. Your mother's back at the house and beside herself with worry. She told you to stay by her side, but you wandered off. She's very angry with you. Little Tansy followed me meekly through the woods, looking incredibly sorry for herself, as if I was dragging her away from a playground and bringing her home to eat liver and onions. When I arrived back at Dogwood Manor and was walking up the driveway, Dolly had managed to prise herself off the bed upstairs. She had clearly wobbled down the staircase and finally was seated in her dog-eared car that looked as worn out and jaded as she did. I wondered if she would get the thing started at all. She was sitting in the front seat, heaving as she tried to breathe. She was so incredibly large that she took up the entire seat. When she saw me bringing Tansy back to the car, all of her 3 chins wobbled in appreciation, and I saw tears of relief gather into her eyes like condensation on a window. I felt so sorry for her. "Oh, bless you, young man," she said, mopping the perspiration off her brow with her tissue. "Thank you so much, Parker," she said. "See, I told you, Dolly. I told you that your daughter would be all right," I said with a big grin on my face. "No harm done. Your daughter is as right as rain, is she not?" Dolly waved a warning finger at her daughter. "You don't ever do something like that again. Do you understand, young lady? If you ever do that again, you'll be in such trouble. When I tell you to stay with me and your brother, that's what I expect from you."
"I just wanted to play with the bear lady, Mummy. She gave me a ride on her shoulders."
"You do not, and I repeat, do not go chasing after bears, young lady. You understand? Bears are dangerous creatures. How many times have I told you that?"
"But the bear lady is nice, Mummy."
"Sweetheart, listen to yourself. You're talking nonsense. Bears may appear nice on the surface. They may look cuddly, like they do in a toy store. But they're dangerous, and you need to stay away from them. Do you understand that?"
"But, Mummy—"
"Don't talk back to me, little girl. Do you understand, Tansy? Now get into the car. I've had quite enough of your nonsense for one day. You've worn me to a frazzle. I thought I was going to have a heart attack. If something had happened to you, I'd never forgive myself. I knew I couldn't trust you to bring you along today. You're always getting into so much mischief. I despair of you. I really do." Little Tansy obediently got into the back of the car, where she sat next to her brother Tom. The two began to whisper and giggle together. I cleared my throat. "Sorry, Mrs. "You don't need to call me Mrs. Parker. It's Dolly. Dolly, are you going to tell your sister, Lisa, about Dogwood Manor?" I asked her. "You said she might be interested in the place. As you can see, it's a very desirable property, packed with a very rich history, and for the right buyer it would be very desirable." "I'm not going to tell her about this place, Parker. Those there woods are a very big problem for me, you see," said Dolly, pointing her fat finger at the woods. "I don't want my daughter coming to stay at this place with her aunt and getting up to all kinds of mischief. If there are bears around, it poses a very big problem. I can't possibly spend my life dragging Tansy away from those woods. And if she came to stay here with her Aunt Lisa, she'd be in those woods day and night. I can't possibly let that happen. I will tell my sister that Dogwood Manor is not suitable. I'm sorry about that, son, really I am. But I've got my children to consider. They like to spend time with their Aunt Lisa, and I can't have them coming here under any circumstances. I'd probably have a heart attack worrying about them all the time." My heart sank as Dolly started up the engine of her worn-out car. Black smoke pirouetted into the air, and with an almighty thunderous chug, the engine started. The car seemed to roll magically into life, as if it had been a dead cadaver that had been resuscitated from certain death. Dolly wound down her window to say thank you to me.
Thank you, Parker, for retrieving Tansy from the grove. I'm so dreadfully grateful for your help. It's no problem at all, Dolly, I said.
Dolly lifted up a podgy hand to wave farewell to me. Her battered car rather precariously sashayed down the driveway until it was all but gone and was a speck on the horizon. I suppose I should have been heartily relieved that the thing had not broken down. I stood there feeling somewhat bemused about what had transpired only moments before. I had seen a Bigfoot giving little Tansy rides on its ponderous shoulders, and Tansy had called the Bigfoot the Bear Lady. It was hard to get my head around this fact. I really thought coming here today would be a non-starter for me, and it would turn out to be a pretty routine, predictable day, but it had been anything but. I had agreed to come here to appease my father, who had become increasingly frustrated that his son did not know what he wanted to do with his life. I had been thinking of taking a gap year off before I finally went to college. I knew it was better to sit on some bright ideas for a career, rather than to go blindly hurtling into something that I might later regret. My father intrinsically believed that if I spent some time with him, selling real estate, I might find something that I would enjoy doing with my life. My mother had promptly laid on the pressure, so I had decided to humour them both by coming along today. The day had panned out to be like nothing I'd ever expected, and in a strange way I was rather glad my father had been called away to the hospital, so that I could meet this female Bigfoot. Had that not happened, I might not have encountered her. I decided to keep the matter of the encounter to myself. This was not something I'd be willing to share with anyone. Besides, if I was to recount my strange tale, would anyone actually believe me? Somehow I doubted it. It was highly unlikely, and the last thing I wanted to do was to be the butt of anybody's jokes. So that is the end of part 3 of our story, and what an incredible story. I'm loving every minute of it, and I hope you are too. So I hope you join me for part 4 tomorrow. Until next time, goodbye and good night.